Let's take something ordinary and make something extraordinary. Boom. Let's make some paint tubes from some toilet paper tubes. First step is you're going to take your toilet paper tube, and it actually is better if it's a little bit of a thin tube. And you're going to just pinch the bottom to flatten it so that it either looks like a tube of toothpaste or, in our case, a paint tube. Once you've gotten the bottom squished, try very hard to fold the bottom up a little bit. This will make it so that the tube will hold its shape. There you go. It's already starting to look like a paint tube. Now all you need are 4 squares of plaster cloth. I'm using what's called rigid wrap. Dip it in the water and then use your fingers to squeeze out all the extra water. This does 2 things. Makes it so the plaster isn't so drippy and wet. If it's too wet, it could cause the tube to start to get kind of weak. Also, it'll make it so that the plaster spreads out across the cloth better, which will make it stronger. Go ahead and drape that over the end of the tube, and without getting any more water on your fingers, just using the water from the plaster cloth, go ahead and massage all the plaster nice and flat. With your second strip, you're going to use that to cover the front of the tube. So once again, I'm squeezing all the extra or excess water out. Now I'm going to overlap one piece over the bottom one a little bit. This can be either for the front or the back of my tube. I'm making sure to use my fingers to smooth out any lumps and bumps. If the tube is nice and smooth, it'll be a lot easier for me to paint. Now that I've got the front finished, I'm going to do the same thing on the back. Because this is a sculpture needs to look good all the way around, unlike a flat work of art that only needs to look good from the front. So I'm making sure to take just as much care on the front as I do on the back. This is what we call good craftsmanship. So now, my last and most important step is to cover the top. And for this, once again, I need to make sure all the water is really squeezed out, because this is the part of the tube that has to be strong enough to drape over the opening without caving in. So make sure you pull those edges of the side of the cloth nice and flat and smooth it as you go. Now, this is plaster wrap, the same thing that goes on an arm or a leg or anything else if it gets broken. It dries super quickly, so I don't even have to wait. I can go ahead and start on the paint squeezing out of the tube. I'm using Celluclay, starting with a piece that's about the size, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. Take one small piece of that and squish it flat. It needs to be squished flat and a little bit bigger, just a little bit bigger than the top of the tube. That way it can drape over it and overlap it a little bit. Just drape the Celluclay over and use your finger to smooth it down. Don't press hard on the middle of the circle or else it will cave in. Focus mostly on just smoothing out those edges to get it nice and flat. And just like you did with the plaster, the more smooth it is, the easier it will be to paint. When that's finished, then we can work on the top of the tube. So as you're working on this, you might want to think about how you want the paint to be squirting out of the tube. Will it make a spiral or will it make a wavy line? Now let's focus on the top. I'm going to make that little part of the paint tube where the paint comes out. So I'm just taking a small piece and squishing it. It should be about the size of a little button. And I'm just gently going to twist and turn that to get it to stick. I know if I push really hard, it could cause that part to cave in. All right, the best part, roll the rest of your clay into a ball and then a coil. The coil should be as thick or even thicker as your finger. Think about rolling it into a spiral or maybe making it into a curvy or wavy line. That's up to you. It does need to be pretty compact, meaning it needs to be kind of squished together. It can't go out of the tube straight because if it does, it could break. So you want to kind of squish it a little bit into where the paint comes out. Use your finger to just gently smush it, and on the back, really smush that clay across to get it to hold. Then we're definitely going to need to let these sit overnight. Maybe a fan in front of them would help them dry faster. Painting. It's my favorite thing to do. Now we get to paint our paint tubes. How funny is that? I'm going to start with the metal band that goes across the bottom that kind of holds the paint together, or the paint tube together, and then I'm going to use some of that gray paint to also paint a little bit at the top. This surface is porous, meaning it's got a lot of holes in it, or pores. So you do kind of have to scrub your paintbrush into the surface a little bit. Be patient, sit super close to your paint so your arm doesn't have to go very far to reach and grab your paint. Again, I'm using that gray paint for both the bottom and for the top. While I'm doing that, I can be thinking about what color I want my paint tube and my paint to be. I think I'm going to go with pink. So once I've got that finished, I can go ahead and start painting the paint coming out of the tube and the band around my tube. That I'm going to use the same color. I'm going to use or leave a little space empty so I can actually paint the name of the paint. That part can be pretty tricky, so for that I'm definitely going to need to use a smaller brush. Again, it's very porous, so you do kind of have to scrub your paintbrush in. There should be no white spots on your paint blob or on your tube. Painting the tube's a little bit easier because it's more of a flat surface. And again, like I said, I'm leaving a band white so that I can paint the name of the color of my paint. I mixed up plenty of paint so I wouldn't run out of paint while I'm painting. There's nothing worse than running out of paint and then trying to mix up the exact same color again. Again, I'm painting all the way around the tube. I'm making sure to hold it in my hand, and I'm trying to keep my fingers nice and clean so that I don't accidentally get paint where I don't want it to be. So as I'm rotating the tube, I'm trying to create a nice straight line across the top of the tube, and then I'm going to do the very same thing across the bottom. Now, if you're going to hang these as ornaments like I plan to do, then you could simply hot glue a string or possibly a little bit of wire to the back. That's up to you. I haven't done anything like that on mine. I'm just focusing on painting mine right now. Once the paint is dry, then I can focus a little bit more on adding some sparkle with some glitter and possibly the words, if I want to, for my paint tube. Finished. Now let's add a little bit of glitter. First, I'm going to paint glue only in small areas where I want the glitter to go. I'm going to go with a little bit of an orange sparkle to add some pizzazz to my paint tube. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue where I want that orange glitter to go and sprinkling it very carefully. You don't need to sprinkle a lot, and let that glue do its job of grabbing onto the glitter. So just a little bit of sprinkles will be just fine. We don't need to go bananas with the glitter. Once that's finished, you can even, after it's dried, add a little bit of sparkle to the top and to the bottom where you want it to look like metal. Now, I always like to make my artwork look a little bit cartoony, and to do that, I usually add a white and a black outline. So I'm just adding little bits of white to kind of make it look a little bit cartoony or reflective. Then when that's finished, I can go ahead and start doing the lettering. Lettering can be tricky, so I'm using a very small brush and I'm just gently kind of, I would say, sketching with my paint in where I want the letters to go. Once I'm finished sketching those in, then I can go back over the letters and make them a little bit neater and cleaner. And of course, because I'm not a very good speller, I always have to double check my spelling first. And masterpiece complete. This one's super fun, super easy, and I can't wait to see how your paint tubes turn out. Have so much fun, guys.